Welcome to this edition of the Million Dollar Mastermind podcast. This is where we pick the brains of high achievers from all walks of life and get their hard-earned, real-world insights on winning. I'm your host, Larry Weidel. How do you come up with 40 patents for a gadget?
I don't know if we have enough time.
But I mean,
So the quick version that I'll caveat with, I am not an attorney, so talk to your IP attorney.
It's almost like you're making money from how many patents you can have. It's like that. Seems like that became a game more than anything else.
It is a game. You look at companies like a tool like Mac Tools. I don't know that they're this, but I imagine that they are. Those companies start with the single patent. And what happens is when you file a utility patent, for example, when that patent issues, you don't close it. You file, I think it's called a continuation in process, a CIP. And that continuation in process leaves that patent open. And all IP attorneys out there are probably like rolling their eyes at me right now. But you leave the patent open and you get to amend the scope of that patent into another patent. So you get to take this thing that's really specific and you get to broaden it a little bit, and that becomes a new patent. Then you get to broaden it a little bit more because you leave that one open and that becomes a new patent. So we had other products, like we came out with a can product that had a number of patents in it. We came out with 2 different versions of BottleKeeper, one that was double walled, single walled, and we had some unique things with lids. But all of those things you leave open, and then you get to amend the patent.
I see.
And then at the end of the day, like we had a path. WinPoint won't do this, nor do I necessarily think they should. It's not what they do professionally. But our next step in that continuation process would have given us the ability to basically have patent coverage on any time you put a container into another metal container. And that all stems from all the way back to just the original BottleKeeper product.
Wow.
So there is a huge strategy around executing patent prosecution, which is why if your listeners are ever considering patents, you cannot talk to your real estate attorney friend. You cannot talk to a general counsel about patents. You have to talk to a IP, intellectual property specific attorney. It is extremely nuanced. And they are like doctors and attorneys and accountants. Some are really, really good. Some are really, really bad. Use your references because it does matter.
Yeah. Great advice. And so when you sold the business, you sold the patents. Is that right? They had access to the patents.
Yeah, I mean, we sold everything. So we sold all of the assets, the business, the brand. They continued on with the brand for a while. But yeah, the patent portfolio was certainly a massive value point to them.
Well, we started off talking about you were running a business. It was heavy, had a lot of moving parts, lots of things to keep up with. How long before you got involved with that after you exited BottleKeeper? That wasn't BottleKeeper, was it?
No. BottleKeeper was light. I mean, even at the point of the acquisition, we only had 4 employees.
Right. So how did you get involved? It seems like a total career change type thing. Were you
from there to now?
No. Well, yeah.
Well, it is. Yeah. That's the beauty of it. That's the stuff that I like. Yeah. I mean, from there to now is...
What's the stage that you started off talking about that was heavy? A lot of different moving parts, equipment.
That was the medical device. That was before BottleKeeper.
Okay, that was before.
Exactly. Good clarification. That was in between college and BottleKeeper, which was about 10 years, 11 years.
That was a good foundation. I mean, so that was quite a long period of time.
Yeah.
That's pretty much your graduate degree in business. That's the way I look at things like that.
It absolutely was.
And so now, where did you get the idea? Is it Pentane Systems is what you're doing now, and this is your idea?
Yeah.
And where did that come from?
It completely organic. I from a wise man took some...
Were you on the beach again with your friend?
No, I was in Montana at that point in life. So the transaction closed in March of 21. Part of the deal was I had to stay on as a CEO to oversee the transition.
Right.
Because they basically just combined our company into theirs. The brand stayed alive, the website stayed alive, but we had to convert all of our stuff into their stuff. So that was the end of the year. I took wise guidance from a very brilliant gentleman that had more gray hair than I to not just go start another company, which of course is exactly what I wanted to do. Because I mean, you grind at that. Like if it sounds easy, I promise you it was not. It was phenomenally difficult until literally the very last day, until the day that you're on the phone with 20 attorneys and they're talking in like the King's English saying, do we consent to this transaction? Aye. It's the weirdest call you ever have. Until that call is over, it is insane. And then it's silent. Like, that's hard to mentally process. And I mean that very like sincerely. I realized that this was a life-changing transaction. It was a huge game-changing thing, but it was phenomenally difficult from the beginning to that point. And that last 6 months, you have this thing while you're also trying to run a company, and that thing could blow up at any second. And you get 3 calls a day about why it might almost blow up. And you string this thing along until it finally closes, and then it just goes completely silent. It is a feeling that I will never, ever forget to come out of such a positive experience. I remember driving, we were in LA at the time, driving by myself in the car in the silence and pulling up to a stop sign and literally just like bursting out in tears for no reason whatsoever. It was just such a mental roller coaster to like just come stop.
Kind of a relief of stress, basically, huh? Just like,
yeah, kind of. So
crushing down.
Absolutely. So we fast forward. I take the time off. I get bored. I do some carpentry projects. I remodel my kitchen, which you can't see on the video, but it looks really nice now. I get to the point where I want to go and start using my brain again. I go to companies that my wife and I had invested in, and I ask them if I can help. And they say, yes, please look under the hood. So I look under the hood, and I quickly realized that 2 companies specifically, one was a $20 million a year business. They were profitable. They had no idea how they actually made money. They knew how to drive revenue, and they knew that they had expenses. And they knew that revenue minus expenses at the end of the year equals net profit if you have it. And that's true. That's 100% accurate. Right. But if you understand the nuance of how to acquire a customer and the costs associated to acquiring a customer and the impact that fixed expenses versus variable expenses have on the business, you have all these levers that you get to pull that change that net profit outcome. And they didn't understand those levers. We at BottleKeeper deeply understood those levers. That's one of the big reasons we were able to grow as fast and as efficiently as we did through the whole life of the business. We built systems internally that gave us clarity into how to pull those levers, how to use ad spend, and at what marketing efficiency or return on ad spend it needed to be at to accomplish our net margin goals, how expenses, as we levered them up and down, impacted the business, the result of which is we were profitable every single year except for one. So I rebuilt some of those systems in a much better, sexier way inside these companies, and it totally changed them. That company increased their net margin by 50% the following year because they now knew how to better leverage. In their case, it was advertising dollars.
Yeah.
So I then got paid as an advisor to help turn around an early stage e-com business. It was a $2 million business. They were losing $100,000 a month and did the same thing. They had no idea how they were spending or making money. So built the systems, and it completely changed their business. 3 months later, they were profitable. Now, a year and a half later, they've grown 300% profitably, and they're crushing. So Pentane is that. Pentane is a system that uses math. So you don't have to. It uses math built on the expenses in your company to tell you how to operate the business profitably.
Incredible. And so people sign up with you, and then it's a matter of getting their information into Pentane, I guess. And are you doing all of that?
So it's a traditional SaaS platform.
Okay.
So if someone can sign up on pentane.com and go and do that, and we have it's coming out in the next 3 weeks, a revised onboarding process where they can do it themselves. In 10 minutes, they can have a fully functional system with all of their expense data in, all of their revenue APIs from Shopify and Amazon, wherever they're collecting revenue, QuickBooks, all of their advertising APIs from Meta, Google, Amazon ads, TikTok, all the things. And it takes all that data and it gives them a picture of what's happening in the company. And then they get to enter their net margin goal, and it tells them how to accomplish that.
Yeah.
For those of you who are sick and tired of fooling around and are dead serious about wanting to move up fast, I've got something especially for you. I've combined the best insights from over 40 years in business and making $70 million in income and compressed them into a free webinar. That's right, it's a free resource. If you want to find out exactly what the concepts are that I use in coaching $1 million earners, register now at WeidelOnWinning.com. You'll discover the 5-part framework used by so many to reach their financial, personal, and professional goals. You can find that link in this episode's show notes.
And so how long did it take you to get the Pentane, was it like created organically in the process of solving the problem of those first 2 companies that came to you and you said, let's just put this into a system because that's just the
Basically,
way you go about. The question I'm wondering is, could you get at least a few patents out of this thing?
I got asked that question the other day by another very intelligent guy, and the answer is maybe.
Yeah.
Technology is different than physical products.
Yeah.
Physical products are largely black and white. There's some gray area in there depending on the types of patents and what you're trying to accomplish. Software and process are a little bit different. And how we build a moat in this business has to be different than how we built the moat with BottleKeeper, which was very intellectual property heavy.
Yeah.
So there may be as we get a little further along, but quite frankly, I'm not sure I want to spend the time and money going down that rabbit hole again.
Yeah.
When I have other ways that we can build some pretty strong moats.
Plus, you're basically just a kid anyway, and you could get bored and decide you want to do it later. You know,
I might. I absolutely could. That could happen.
You could get that bull. Once you get that bull, you get him up on the wall.
Yeah.
But then you're going to say, I'm starting to get restless. So talk about, you put yourself through the ringer, various, success in various situations, various parts of the country, various businesses. And now you've got essentially kind of a Lone Ranger type life where you kind of control things. Describe the payoff for putting because you said it was hard, but you did not back off from it. You saw it through. And this is what I like to bring out periodically is entrepreneurs, if they know their success, even though the problems it's created, if you just hang in there, there is another side of the mountain. And where you don't have to keep doing this forever, but the rewards for going through, paying the price, putting up with it, are astronomical beyond what you can imagine while you're going through it. And so it helps to know that so you can, emotionally, you might not accept it, but at least logically you could say, there's going to be a better day. This is going to lead to something wonderful that I can't even imagine right now. That's what you find out from most people that paid the price to build a business, put up with it. Of course, it was a nightmare going through it. But then they come out, they're like, I would have gone through it 10 times had I known it was going to be this good on the other side. And so describe where you are right now in your life, because I get the idea that you've got things pretty well organized for yourself.
I would not say that I have things pretty well organized. I would say that, and maybe that's not fair, we live a very intentional life. The things that we have done in the last 15 years post-medical were all done intentionally. I mean, they were not accidental. We didn't accidentally get into a situation where we could travel 4 or 6 months of the year while running a profitable business. Like we did that on purpose. And I think that too often people end up in a position that they don't want to be in because intentional decisions weren't made, and then they feel stuck and they can't get out of it. And the reality is you always have a choice. And the choices that you make, whether to continue or do something different, will dictate that outcome. And for me, I have always been really, at least for the last 15 years, very, very sensitive to that. So we are very intentional with the decisions that we make and how we do and build. And Pentane will be the same to that. I mean, also the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. Like going through this version of startup is completely different than the last version of startup, which was different than the prior version of startup.
Right.
You get better at them. They get easier to tolerate the ups and downs. The ups and downs get flatter. But to your point, which is a really, really important point, companies fail when people quit. Like that's when they fail.
Yeah. And
I fully appreciate that everybody's circumstances are different. And sometimes you may not have another option. And then you have to deal with that. But the reality is if you as an operator can do everything you possibly can to mitigate your risk, your downside risk, to let things play out over time, it's these tiny little tweaks and tiny little sort of evolutionary changes that happen in the business that you may not recognize, but you look back at a month from now or 2 months from now or 6 months from now. I mean, I'm doing it right now. Like, holy hell, I cannot believe how this got to this in that period of time. But when you're in the midst of doing it, it feels like it's a mountain you can climb.
Yeah.
So you just got to keep your head down 1 foot at a time, walk away from it for 20 minutes, sleep on it. Like, nothing bad is going to happen in a good night of sleep. Come back to it.
Well, and the thing is, just because you can't see how it could possibly work out today doesn't mean that you won't see how it can work out tomorrow or this afternoon.
Absolutely.
Or it doesn't mean that somebody is not going to show up this afternoon with an idea, or you'll hear something in the wind and like, oh, that didn't think of that. And then things change, but if you're not in the game, you can't capitalize on that, you know?
Absolutely true. You never know what's around the corner.
How long have you been writing for Inc. magazine?
We were on Inc. 5000 list in 2018 or 19. I wrote a couple articles, or maybe 1 or 2 articles back then. I started writing for them again earlier this year. I should be writing a lot more. I'm supposed to be writing 1 article a month. I think I've written 3 in 11 months. So I do need to write more. I've been focused so much on Pentane, but I do really enjoy this chapter. Post BottleKeeper chapter of my life is really dedicated to helping other early stage founders solve problems that are complex, or at least they seem complex. And writing is a really good, Pentane is one of the ways to do that. Writing is another way to do that, sort of share the war stories that help other people make decisions faster.
Is it rewarding for you to, I know, for name recognition, to build your brand, and for the business and all of that payoff, but is it satisfying writing for a magazine like that?
It's satisfying writing. I enjoy writing. And frankly, it helps me organize my own thoughts.
There you go.
I wrote for Entrepreneur for a couple of years. I wrote 60 or 70 articles for them.
Oh, you did?
And I really enjoyed doing that. And that was in early mid BottleKeeper stage. So I've been writing kind of like that for a while. I took some time off in between the things, but doing it at a publication just gives, like, I'm not going to do it on my personal blog and reach the people that Inc. magazine is going to reach.
Right.
So it at least gives you the capacity to have more people see that content, benefit from the content. I'm not doing it for brand recognition. Frankly, I'm a private person. I want to remain as much as I can a private person. That's why I'm largely off the socials and all those things. So it's really more just, it's a great avenue to get content to the people that might be able to use it.
When you and your wife traveled, where did you like going the most? Looking back on it, what was most fun?
Where we went back to the most was Europe.
Yeah.
Spain, France, Italy were the highlights. Spent a bunch of time in Switzerland, Germany, Austria, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But where we traveled that was probably the most impactful is Africa. And where we saw the most cultural difference was in Asia, namely in Cambodia, Japan. And that going to those places is just absolutely fascinating because it's so different. Europe's not that different. They speak a different language.
Right.
Food's a little different.
Yeah.
Their culture's older. It's not that different.
That challenging those differences in culture and everything over in Cambodia and Pacific Rim.
I wouldn't say that I would call it challenging. I found it really interesting. You get to immerse yourself. And because of what we were doing it for a month or so at a time. It wasn't like
right.
We were fortunate to not be in a position where we had to limit it to 4 days or 5 days. So we got to see a lot and like really kind of dig into it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just an opportunity to soak up another worldview and learn about Buddhism and visit temples and sit with monks and learn about, they have some, like most countries, have some pretty troubling history. And that's a part of the story too.
Yeah. Very interesting. Adam, it's been a lot of fun talking with you. Congratulations on a great career so far. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with Pentane going forward. I like to give my guests, the last word. So do you have one last parting shot for the people that have stayed with us all the way through?
Yes. And I don't mean this in a conspiratorial context, unless you like going down that rabbit hole, but question everything. Just because someone tells you something needs to be done a certain way does not make it true. If you have an MBA, that's great. You have the basis for what is mostly financial accounting, and that's helpful. But how you build a business is how you choose to build a business. You get to do it however you want, and then you have to listen to what the customer tells you. So I believe deeply in that. Just because it's done a certain way doesn't make it right or wrong or a good fit for you. You get to go and craft your own movie.
Yeah. Fantastic. Excellent finishing comments. Thanks so much, Adam. Good luck getting that elk. And you a compound shooter or a traditional longbow?
Compound. I haven't gotten to the recurve yet. That's next, next in my Montana habits.
Okay. Well, wish you the best and look forward to talking to you again down the road.
Likewise. Thanks, Larry.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to the final part of this episode of the Million Dollar Mastermind podcast. Great ideas don't care who uses them. If you're motivated to move up in a big way, right now, I've created a free training video to remove the mystery on how to set yourself up for big success. This is the information that has changed so many of our lives, and it can have the same impact on you, and the video is completely free. You'll find it at WeidelOnWinning.com. Join us over there, and thanks for being part of our community.